Hi, I'm John Waterhouse. Welcome to week 2 of our summer prosperity review. Dr. Barbara has selected the highlights you're about to see, and we know that you'll be finding something that has great value to you as you go through this class with us. Enjoy it, and I'll be here at the end to give you some more information. Enjoy.
Are you ready to have your power?
Yes!
Are you ready to have your life be the way you want it to be?
Yes!
Are you sure?
Yes!
Are you ready to, in particular, have money?
Yes!
Are you ready to Are you ready to have more money than you know what to do with?
Yes!
Are you ready to go where you want to go?
Yes!
Do what you want to do?
Yes!
Buy what you want to buy?
Yes!
Be who you want to be?
Yes!
Get up out of here, children. We're going to do our treatment for increased income together aloud.
I certainly know that God is the source of all supply, and that money is God in action. I know that my good is here now. I am so rich and so full that I have abundance of money to spare and to share today and always. I know that true prosperity includes perfect health, perfect wealth, and perfect happiness. This word which I speak in faith knowing now activates universal law, and I accept the results. I bless all that I have now, and I bless the increase. I bless all the others in the increased income program of our class, and I know that we now prosper together in every way. I give thanks for this good, and so it is.
Wonderful, wonderful. So the way that we begin the prosperity class is if you have created money. This sharing right now is just about money. And if you have your 10% time, I want you to come up, line up, and get ready to share. Bring it on up.
I got a check in the mail from a Fidelity investment group from where I used to work. I retired 5 years ago and I closed this account. I said, give me all my money and close this account. I got a check for $258.11.
You may recognize this quote. It goes, prosperity awaits our recognition and acceptance of it. Your financial success already exists, but it is waiting for you to see it and accept it as your own. That's our own Ernest Holmes from Basic Ideas of Science and Mind, and it was on our overhead during our celebration yesterday, and I wanted everybody to just know that that really speaks to what we're doing in this class, that no one is held back. No one is unable to do this. It's simply having the skills to bring forth the things in your life that you desire. That's what makes this work. That's what's extraordinary. So thank you, Ernest, for joining us in this. What I want to do next is kind of review where we were from last week. We did some prosperity principles. So I want to bring them back and just review them for a couple of reasons. One, that our sound wasn't working great last week, and I want to make sure these points are clear as we move forward for anyone online, but also for anyone that wasn't here last week. And we start with principle 1, which is your prosperity will grow only to the extent that you will grow. Now that aligns with what we just saw Ernest Holmes say. He says it's already there. So the revelation of your prosperity is what we're talking about here, will grow as you are ready to experience it, and not before. But no one's denied this. It's not that some way you can be denied your prosperity. It's impossible. Except that maybe you can deny it by not receiving it, by not being open to it, by having things in your subjective mind that aren't aligned with it. And that's what we're going to talk about later tonight. But this stands. And one of the things I want to say about this is that many of us in this room and in life have a story about almost making it. where we were on a trek and we thought we had really accomplished something great, and then suddenly it slipped away. And I got one of those stories. I grew up in Miami, Florida, and at the age of 19 moved to Houston, Texas, and went to work, got a job through somebody who placed me with a company called the National Supply Company, and what they did was they made drilling equipment for the oil field. And I was just a entry-level guy, worked in an expediting department, learning about that, ended up working in the purchasing department there over the 5 years I was there, made a lot of contacts and friends, and got invited to leave that big corporation and go to work with a startup. And crazy and foolish young guy that I was in my early 20s, probably 24, said okay, and went off to do this, and worked for an electric motor company for a little while. A company that sold electric motors, again, much of it going into oil field applications. We were in Houston. Where else would they go? There were other places, but that was the main thing. And so now I'm out in the field selling this stuff and learning more and more and more, and got the crazy notion that I could start my own business. And so I did. I started a company called Waterhouse Engine and Pump Company, which built fluid handling systems for oil field applications. And we actually got pretty good at it. I hired people to work with me. I went to the same kind of companies I was calling on before and selling a bunch of this equipment. And that business was around for about 4.5 years. And what we did, we went from 0 to 28 employees. And by the time we were at our pinnacle, we were selling over $4 million worth of equipment per year, which isn't, like it would play in with the big boys, but it certainly was more than I ever imagined. But even in the midst of doing that, I still was having trouble paying my bills. I remember once running home with a check to leave it for the electric company so they didn't turn my power off. My electricity off, thank you very much. Because no one can turn your power off. And so that's the way I lived. I was married. I actually got into a couple of other startup businesses where other people were using my money to start up businesses, and those didn't work out very well because I didn't really know what I was doing. And out of that, it all kind of collapsed. Now, I can give you the story about how it collapsed. It collapsed at the moment that the big oil companies decided to stop paying the drilling companies to drill by the day, but rather to drill by the foot. Because they were drilling, so there was an amount of depth that they were drilling, and the oil company said, we're going to pay you by the foot now instead of by the days, because what they would do is, as they would get close to getting to the oil, they would slow down so that they would get paid more days. And so suddenly the whole industry was upside down. And companies that were drillers were struggling to, even though there was still a lot of drilling going on, they were struggling and it was not working well. And one of the supply companies I was selling to gladly received over $1 million worth of equipment, turned it over to the drilling company, and then filed for bankruptcy. And I had to close my business. But over time, I began to realize that this was not my calling. It's something I learned to do, but I had no real passion for it. I did it, but it gave me enough money to buy a big house and drive a new car and all those things, but I didn't really have passion for it. So what I know is that if all those things had not happened right when they did, I would have destroyed it. I would have taken it down, and it wouldn't have taken me much longer. So it all was just fine. I remember someone asking me, a business associate, would you like to try to recreate this and do something else with it? And I looked and said, no way. I'm out of here. My marriage had ended. My life as I knew it was over. So I had a choice of following my soon-to-be ex-wife back to Florida or going in the opposite direction. And I voted for the opposite direction and ran away. Went to Sydney, Australia to recreate my life, and I did. But It wasn't that something was wrong. That just wasn't my calling. It was really good experience. It gave me great business experience, which I have used ever since, but that wasn't what I was here to do. And this really happens with a lot of people, that especially people that you see that were like millionaires, making lots of money, lost it all, and within a couple of years they're doing it again. And what they had that I didn't quite have yet was that they understood how it worked. And they had just made choices that caused it to empty, but they knew how to do it back. We have some people in this community that can tell those kind of stories about making great wealth and losing it and then making it again. And some people, we talked briefly about Donald Trump last week, and he's one of those people that went through bankruptcies and losses and all kind of stuff and rebuilt it. And there are many people that get that understand how to do that. So that's what we want you to get out of this class, is the ability not to always be successful at everything, but understand how it works, so that if that happens, it's not over. You're not devastated. You rebuild it. You do it again. And I'm not saying all of you are going to go out and create a business, and all of you are going to hire employees. You're not all going to do that. Some of you might have those kinds of dreams, and that's wonderful. Others of you are just looking for a way to have a life that works better for you, where you do have more income. And there's lots of ways to do that. One of the pieces Barbara talked about last week, she talked about tithing. And we believe in tithing here. Barbara's resurrected the idea of tithing in me when I came back from Australia and met, because she was already very committed to that role, and I'd seen it work in my life. So I picked it back up, and ever since we have been tithers, and that's what we do. And there's some here who have gone through that kind of a thing where you are facing some challenge, and the first thing that happens is, got to stop tithing, and then things get worse. And then at some point you recommit, and the person that Barbara, would you hand the mic to Dee right here? So does this resonate at all with you, Dee Brooks?
Yeah, not a bit, not a bit.
So what I want to ask you is, when the time came that you found yourself not in as dynamic a flow as you had been, you gave up tithing, right?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm not making you wrong here.
No, I know that. Listen, I get it.
This is a learning thing, and I want everybody. Here's how it works. You can listen to Dee, who has this direct thing to talk about, which has happened recently in her life, and get it, or you can do it yourself. This is an easier way to get it. So Dee, so you got into that kind of a situation, and you constricted.
Fear.
Yeah. And what pulled you out of that?
Barbara and John. And an innate understanding that if things were going to improve, we had to go back to what we knew worked.
Yeah, very nice. So you moved beyond the fear.
Yes.
Yeah.
A couple of, nudges in the tail, like, conversations with you that, opened up what was available.
Right. Oh, it opened up what was available.
Yeah.
And you had something at stake here, because your plan is to be a licensed practitioner come next Saturday.
Absolutely. It's actually this coming Saturday.
This coming Saturday.
Yeah.
So but this we're talking months back when all this was going on.
Oh yeah.
So in the midst of that, you made that choice, and the first thing that changed was you got a really good job.
I got a great job.
A job that matched your skills,
right.
And you were feeling like you got it, and you're back on, and you're tithing, and now you're tithing, and everything's working, and you've got this great job, and then what happened?
I got an amazing promotion.
Yes.
And I shared with Barbara, I didn't know you were going to do this. When you told me earlier we were going to be doing this, I didn't realize it was going to be this.
Yeah.
But I did say that last week because that had happened the week before.
Right. So you've got this, not just a promotion, you've actually up-leveled into really leadership of this organization. You got a major role.
Absolutely. There were 16 regions, and now there are 4 divisions. And even though I've only been with this company for 7 months, I was one of the 4 nurses that was chosen to be the divisional director of clinical services.
And I don't want to say it's because you were tithing. Here's how I want to say this. Tithing is not a spiritual principle. It is a spiritual practice. So it's by practicing that and knowing who you are in the midst of it, and knowing you always have enough, more than enough, that allowed this to happen to you. It's your consciousness up-leveling that took you to this new place. And you're really a model for all of us, so thank you.
Well, thank you, and I can't tell you how grateful I am to the 2 of you for helping bring me back.
Yay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah. So there's an interesting thing about this money idea. This idea that there's a lot of rich people with money, and then the rest of us are either in the middle class or working class or something beneath that, struggling to do that. Here's what I know is that all of this is based in consciousness, and that there's enough money in the world that every single person could, if we redistributed all the money, everyone would be a millionaire. Everyone would be a millionaire. But for how long? Because consciousness drives this. And in somewhat of a short period of time, it would be back that we would all be at these tier levels of income or tier levels of money assets that we had, net worth. It would all go back to where it was because we're true to our nature and we do what we do. So that's not the answer. The answer is for us to up-level our consciousness, and that's what this class is about. And the focus of this class, we teach many great classes at this center. This class is about your prosperity, and that's where we're going. So we start with this prosperity principle having to do with your growth and the growth of your prosperity being completely aligned. Is there anything else that I want to say about that? Yes. Well, no, you can't just speak now. You have to speak into the mic tonight.
Oh, I see.
For it to be recorded.
Hey, John.
Yes. Yes, Jane.
When you say prosperity, how are you defining that?
Well, prosperity can change from person to person. You know, to some people, prosperity is having $1 million. To some people, it's having more than enough to do what you want to do in your life. I think that's probably a better way to look at it because we're not going to be counting your assets here. That's not part of this class. Our intention with this class is that everybody has a more fulfilling, meaningful life, which includes money, which means that the money is in flow in our lives, not that we're limited by it or restricted or defined by the amount of money we have in our accounts, but that we have more than enough for everything that we want to do. That would please me. You know, we're shooting for the stars, and the idea is hit the moon. So that's where we are with this. Boy, my beautiful earpiece is playing games tonight, so I'm just going to know that this is all working out and leave it alone. Okay, so I want to go to prosperity principle number 2. If you want to change the outcomes in your life, you must first change yourself. This class is not strategies for making money or investing money or any of the sort. We are working on that part of you that is invisible. And the invisible part, remember last week we showed the seed, soil, plant concept, which is our teaching symbol, but in that, what I said is that the seed at the top, in the top section of that, is invisible. And I go, well, I can see seeds. And you can see a seed, but you can't see it once it's planted. You also can't take any seed and see its potential. You can know its potential, but you can't see it. It's invisible. The plant that would emerge from that at that point is invisible. And if you think about it, that plant that it would create that would bloom and have seeds and produce more, that would create plants that would bloom and have seeds and more. So there's kind of an infinite potential in a seed, which you cannot see by looking at the seed. There was one Sunday when after Barbara and I had been in California and walked through a redwood forest, that we collected some redwood seeds, and I taped them to a little index card and passed them out. Tiny little seed that from which the largest tree on the planet is grown. You know, you would think a gigantic a tree that the seeds would be like this, you know, like a coconut or bigger. They're not. They're little tiny things, and they create these monstrous, beautiful, majestic trees, which have actually create living areas up in them where plants and animals live their entire lives and never come down to the ground, and yet scamper across great areas. It's amazing what they can do. So that invisible idea that comes from the seed speaks to its potential. And I want you to know that the beliefs that you have, just the idea that you have, has extraordinary potential. Now, what happens to most seeds? Most seeds never make it. So your plan is to have those seeds that are most important to you actually get planted and nurtured and watered and cared for and beloved as it comes up. And I'm going to, okay, let's get Sherry the mic here. She has a point or a question she'd like to ask, and I'm glad for her to do that.
And please remind me, wasn't there something about a forest fire or flames or something with those seeds? Like they had to be burned or something like that in order for them?
Many plants
Wasn't
that
it
will
particular?
not release their seeds until they are immersed in a natural fire. Unnatural would probably do it too, but and I don't know if the redwoods
I think that's
are true
what
about
you
that.
You said something about that.
There are
So it's
many-
like the
there are
burning
many
off.
plants.
The burning off of old ideas.
What they have found, even in the deserts, when the fires come through, that plants emerge that haven't been there for decades because it's released by the fire. So that being tempered is part of this as well. You know, we would think a fire is something that would be destructive, and there are points in our process that seem destructive, but they're not. They cause us to become clearer about who we are, what we're doing, and that temper us into moving forward. So it's a really good point. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you. So we've got our principle number 2. If you want to change the outcomes in your life, you must first change yourself. Again, we're working on the inside. We're working on that invisibility and where it takes us. So with that, I would remind you all that those of you that were here last week, you left with an assignment and a sheet of paper to work on. And if you brought those with you, fantastic. If you didn't, it still works. But what I want to ask, and be ready with the mic, is not so much going into the details of what you wrote, but I'm curious if any of you had some real awakenings or revelations as you went through this. And if you do and you're willing to share them, raise your hand, because I would love to hear. Okay, we'll start with Jen.
Yeah, I thought this was an amazing assignment. I learned so much and got so much insight and clarity every day that I decided to Xerox these and keep doing it every day. But one of the things that was just screaming out to me is that fear is a life stopper.
Oh, yeah.
It's incredible.
You buy into it.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. To speak to fear for just a second is what I found is that we all have fear. If I love the idea of living fearless, but it's not true. I heard someone that was receiving a medal. I think the Medal of Honor from the president sometime recently was asked if he was afraid when he was in combat. He said anybody who's in combat that's not afraid is a fool. The question is, does your fear stop you, or do you use it as a tool to say, okay, I get it, because fear comes from your ego, and your ego doesn't want you to take any chances. So do you listen to that and buy into it, or do you say, okay, thank you for that information, I'm moving forward anyway? And when the people that are willing to move forward are the ones that actually win. We all have fear. Anybody that thinks that they should not have fear is not getting the game. That's a great point. Who else? Anybody else want to share anything from the process of doing this work over the last week? Great. Drew in the back of the room. We'll give a second for Drew to get the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you.
What'd you get, Drew? What'd you learn?
Hi. Yeah, I didn't really want to do this. Not that I don't. I in school I didn't really do much homework. But I didn't really want to do this because it kind of went to the negative. But I'm going to do this. I've had some some trials a little of late and whatnot. But mine was fear as well. But it was like overthinking fear and not letting the process happen. Getting out of the way, getting my ego out of the way to let happen what I know is going to be amazing. And it's like, okay, let me put this down. I'm going to put this down. I did my homework. Some people that I know didn't, but whatever. So
it's all perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, so I just couldn't think of anything that was going on in my life that was not something that I actually wanted going on until our landlord raised the rent. So I thought about that. Okay, this is bad. We have to move. But then I realized how I did bring this on because our neighbors cut down all the trees, and then I hated our backyard. And I was very, very angry about it, and I wanted to move. Somebody did not want to move, so I'm like, okay, I'll put up a redneck fence, and it'll be all okay. We can stay here for one more year, but I really still was not happy about it. So then the landlord raised the rent to give me a kick in the butt to get out of there. But the other thing that is funny that I realized today is I have been wanting to go through my stuff and get rid of things that I don't use, that I don't need, that I don't love, and I think about it, and that's a good thing to do tomorrow. But now it's a good thing to do in 6 weeks so that we can move.
There you go. Yay. Brilliant. Very nice. Anyone else want to share anything from our experience? Okay, I hope it was valuable for you. I hope that it gave you a look at your role in all of this and how it all fits together. I'm not looking for you to have problems. That's the last thing I'm wanting. But all of us have something that we're working on, and if we don't, it'll show up very soon, as Amanda has so clearly shared with us and proven to us. So great. I'm glad that worked. And anyone that wants to continue it can certainly do that. Anyone that wants to start it, we have some of these forms. They're also on the website if you'd like to do that. Great. So where do we move from here? We move on to principle number 3. Principle number 3, 99% of everything we experience is a result of our personal perceptions. The remaining 1% is circumstances to which we must adapt and adjust. What I'm saying here is that really we're creating nearly everything in our lives. This was a lovely process for me as I declared this principle, because I had to think more about that 1%. I thought a lot about the 99%. That was easy. That was easy, but it took more work around the 1% to actually come up with ideas around it. To remind you oh, okay, I'll go back. There you go. Write it down. There you go. Actually, it's going to come back again in a few minutes, so if you don't get it, it'll be back up. In fact, it'll be up next time for much longer, so let me go on now. You'll get it. Just leave a little space. All right? It'll be okay. We'll get it. You get it. It's coming back. All right. Remember seed, soil, and plant. That's what we have been working on, and I find that to be an extraordinarily valuable tool that is important for us to remember, because most of our time is spent looking at the physical, the plant, because it's not the plant we wanted. We planted a seed that brought us a plant that really didn't work. And we keep looking at the plant, thinking that's what we need to change.
Well, that was fun. So I want you to think back on what you just saw. What's your big takeaway?
What is the thing that sticks with you from what you just experienced? Whatever it was, don't lose it. Let it work on you. Let it become part of you, and see how it impacts the way that you make your life work in a prosperous and abundant fashion. And also, don't forget, if you haven't already done so, fill out the registration for our increased income program, which we're doing this summer. It's on the homepage of cslasheville.org. And if you send that to us, we'll confirm that we got it. And then every day we'll hold your name, knowing the truth of Spirit as you, and knowing that you are prosperous, abundant in every way. So thank you again for joining us. We'll have another review class for you next Monday, and we hope to see you then. Have a great week.